Hi people, this is Glenn Maurer and you're watching The Next Step TVSB, which is broadcast on cable television in Santa Barbara, channel 17. We're also available on YouTube and Ustream. If you want to Google those, The Next Step TVSB, make sure you have the TVSB and The Next Step together, otherwise you get something a little bit different than what we put on the air, but you'll find us online, or as I say, on cable access television. And you can see this show and other shows that we've done over the last several years dealing with subjects such as this one about the environment, or politics, which is this also is about politics a bit. Today we're going to continue an autumn series dealing with issues that are going to be decided in the California elections this coming November. And there's a lot of them. There's, I think, 17 matters on the ballot. And that's a huge number of things for people to try to be informed about. Hopefully we'll help a little bit in that regard. 150-page voter pamphlet, I believe. Nobody's going to read that, but we'll listen to us and we'll tell you what you need to know. Also, the thing that's happened this year that's an interesting phenomenon, on several cases, there are two ballot initiatives dealing with what ostensibly appears or what might seem to be the same issue. And the idea is to trick you, honestly, simply to trick you into voting against your own interests. You might be against one thing and see, well, I'll vote for both of these because they both seem to be against it, and find out that what you got tricked and that you voted for something that you shouldn't have voted for, and because you got more votes, it becomes the effective law and the one you preferred isn't. So tonight we're going to talk about Prop 67 and Prop 65, two of those types of ballot initiatives. And with me today to do that are Kathy King, who's Director of Outreach, is that your preferred type, at the Santa Barbara Community Environmental Council, a longtime activist in the environment group in Santa Barbara, and Penny Owens, Education Director with Santa Barbara Channel Keepers. So welcome both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming. I don't know if the cameras can back off and show you. Right there in front of the table, our fourth guest, plastic bags. Penny brought that pile, and tell us what that represents, Penny.
That represents the average number of bags that a person uses in a single year, which is about 350 single-use plastic bags. We actually worked with a local elementary school, and the students collected those bags from their homes and strung them all together. And it's in a very tight, solid ball of single-use plastic bags.
Yeah, and it makes an impressive moment, and I think it's nice to have that visual impact of that, because if you only see a bag at a time, and you use it to line your trash can, or you pick up your dog waste, or use something, you think, oh, no big deal. But I remember a few years ago, the bag there was a line that the national bird of Thailand were plastic bags, because there were so many of them caught in trees and fences. They were just streaming everywhere. And we tend to not understand that California is only part of the world, and the rest of the world is inundated with plastic bags, even perhaps more so than we are.
Yeah, definitely more so.
But California has gotten some care about it. So anyway, so we have these two ballot initiatives, Prop 67 and Prop 65. One is a referendum. Mm-hmm. So those of us who remember a few years ago say, well, California passed a ban on plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, under most circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
What did that ban do?
It got rid of, very similar to the city of Santa Barbara's law, it got rid of plastic bags being distributed basically anywhere that sells food, from a gas station convenience store all the way to a major grocery store chain. And in terms of source reduction, that generally gets rid of more than 90% of bags in circulation, while still leaving, a small percentage of bags in circulation for those secondary uses, like you were saying, like bringing lunch or picking up after your pets.
Or taking home produce from the grocery store, or,
right.
there are some bags the grocery stores can still.
Yes, they can have those ones on rolls in the produce or meat department.
So it's not like some aesthetic Just, you don't have to put it in your pocket and take your wet chicken home with you.
Right.
Okay.
Still have those
Right.
produce bags.
Yeah,
And then
so-
it also placed a 10-cent charge on paper bags.
And 10-cent charge on paper bag for those who want to buy a paper bag. And my understanding is that that's about what it costs to buy a paper bag.
That's what we hear from the Grocers
That's right.
Association.
I'm surprised. I'm going to take a real quick segue here, but my first box boy job back in the day, the manager used to come by and scream at us because if we didn't put enough stuff in the bags. Because he said that the bags cost him 1.7 cents a piece. I never forgotten this. And that was the profit they made on every dollar. And every bag we wasted was a profit of $1 that he could have made. So it's been, those paper bags have been around a long time. So they're now 10 cents. Anyway, so yeah, we had some success in California after years and years of trying. And we were involved in Santa Barbara, trying to get Santa Barbara City Council on board to do this, and they finally did.
It took a long time. You and I were sort of at the front lines
We
of
were-
that. I
we
think
were-
that was about 9 years ago.
It's been, but it's nice to look back and see some success.
It took a very long time.
2007.
Now, that law is still in effect, is it not?
It is, and it won't be superseded or changed by the state law.
think that's
Basically, it'll just
important to
bring
know.
everybody else along.
So it's a lot of cities in Santa Barbara, in the state of California have come along. Los Angeles, I think.
LA,
San
LA
Jose.
County. There's more
LA
than
County.
151 cities and counties that are that have bag bans in place within
And
their
some of them are
jurisdictions.
even more restrictive than the state law.
Yes, San Jose, I believe, went to all retailers. Is that correct? Yeah. So they even have department stores and hardware stores that don't sell food are covered by the San Jose law, and that's 1 million people, and they haven't had any complaints there.
And I think that's important for people to remember. In Santa Barbara, there was all this sound and fury about how I can't go shopping without bags, my free plastic bags. How can you take my bags from me? That's a fascist state or something. I don't know what they were thinking about. But the fact of the matter is, most people have adopted to new practices very easily. Adapted to.
Yeah, and we partnered with the city on the education campaign that came out of you and Kathy first bringing this issue to the attention of City Council, and they, we gave away thousands and thousands of free reusable bags, and since the Santa Barbara bag ordinance has been in place, they actually haven't received a single complaint.
Wow, that's pretty good. And so if the new law passes, Santa Barbara law will remain in effect, but Goleta doesn't have a plastic bag. Boo on Goleta, by the way.
We've tried.
We have tried.
Tried multiple times.
Carpinteria was an early adopter, I think.
They were the first ones. Well, when we started, basically making the rounds back then, when you connected us with Channel Keeper and we teamed up, we started going to CARP, I think around 2008 also, about the same time we were going to Santa Barbara. It took a couple of years there too, but they passed it first. So they were the first
that was
They were the
community.
first in Santa Barbara County.
And again, but Goleta, which is a large population, we sort of just won't go along with some of these ideas. So the state law does apply to Goleta if it stays in effect. Let's get back to that. Now, we had the state legislature finally adopted a law, and that was, I think we have a video, maybe, if we can get that video on, let's see what a little bit of that, how that happened.
Is this my video?
great. So that was a video you put together. This was your work.
Yep, so Channel Keeper, we headed out in 2 creeks in Goleta, San Pedro Creek
Goleta.
and San Jose Creek specifically, and counted every single-use plastic bag we encountered. We took a photo of them, took some video, and then also picked them up and to dispose of them.
And as a result of that lobby and that effort and effective advocacy, the governor did sign that bill.
He did.
And what happened? The law went into effect, and then what happened?
Within a few weeks, the plastic bag industry had submitted the paperwork for the referendum.
Yeah,
Yeah, it hadn't yet gone into effect.
I'm
That
sorry,
was
right.
they
They started
before.
signed.
They got it before it
Yeah,
went
it was
into effect.
supposed to go into effect July 1, 2015, so there was a little bit of a lag time.
Yeah, and for those of us who don't remember political science classes or government classes in high school, a referendum is a way for get signatures to stop a law that was passed by the legislature from taking effect, so the voters can ratify it or not ratify it. So in order for this law to go into effect now, people have to vote yes on it again, right?
Correct.
Be clear about this. Yes on
Yes, on
this.
67 on the state
Yes,
to
on 60
uphold the statewide bag ban.
Upholds the existing law that the legislature passed, the governor signed, and would have taken effect, but for this referendum. So we want to do that and get that 284 bags or whatever that number was out
That
of
was
those
just one
creeks
day, a few
permanently.
hours, yeah.
Well, it's so frightening because they're just everywhere and they're sort of out of sight often. Now, so who paid to get this on the ballot?
Out-of-state bag manufacturers,
I understand.
mostly in Texas, North Carolina, New Jersey. There's very little bag manufacturing being done in the state of California.
I understood
And-
there was one bag manufacturer, but the out-of-state ones, because, I would like to get back to what you just about to say, because I know it'll be more important than what I'm going to say, but let me say this, because I have to say it. I think the public should understand that this material that these plastic bags are made of is basically a waste product. This is junk. This is not something that costs them anything. They love to make bags out of it and other things out of it because otherwise it gets put in landfill by itself anyway. The chemical industry it's not high quality chemistry to make these plastic bags which fall apart in the sunshine and deteriorate, go into the oceans and eaten by fish and pollute the whole world. This is real trash. And they're just taking their trash and giving it to us so we can throw it away somewhere, either in landfill, which is bad, or worse, so it gets free into nature, goes into the water, goes into the air, and goes into the soil and gets consumed. Terrible, terrible stuff. Never, never becomes part of nature. Go ahead. What were you about to
Well,
say?
now I have 2 things I'd like to say, and Kathy keeps this number in her head, but one is by collecting all these signatures and placing a referendum on the statewide bag ban, they've effectively put the state law on hold for about a year and a half. And what was the number for their profits that they've made in that year and a half?
148 million.
So they made $148 million just by getting a year's delay.
Exactly.
Just with that
which
one
is,
delay.
so the money that they spent to get the referendum was pretty well spent, probably.
Right, they've spent about $6 million so far, and the estimates are that they'll spend $50 million before all is said and done, because they've already made $150 million. It's not that big of a part of their budget. But people like us, we don't have a budget to fight them.
Well, it's always the case, isn't it? But another thing that we need to remind people of, and I've heard this so often, and you and I have been through these wars so often, I sort of think maybe everybody knows this, but they don't. There's this general idea, well, we just recycle them. We'll just recycle them. They're almost unrecyclable.
Correct.
Less than 2 or 3% are even purportedly recycled.
Right.
Well, and this is what I tell kids when I talk to them, and maybe Penny says the same thing. Recyclable is not the same thing as recycled. They can put arrows, chasing triangle of arrows on anything they want, but
Right.
if there's no market for it, it's not going to actually get recycled.
Right,
And that's the case with plastic bags in particular, but a lot of types of single-use plastics, including bottles.
And styrofoam and
Yeah, and styrofoam is probably the most prevalent, falsely labeled, in my sense, falsely labeled. There's other things, like it says 7 or 5 or
The
some
other
number
category,
you've never heard
yeah.
of before, and there's nobody's collecting plastic 7, to put into anything because it's not easily processed into another product.
Right.
It's already junk. And plastic bags, the supermarkets used to collect them. It's sort of messy.
they were required to by a state
Right, and then they would
recycling
put them in the
law.
landfill, is my understanding. So,
And if you've hiked by our landfill in Tehiquis, up the coast here, you see plastic bags. There's a trail access ranch on Barron Ranch, a trail loop right adjacent to the landfill. Plastic bags and that film plastic
'Cause it
in
gets
all the
free.
bushes and trees. Yeah,
And I say this
unintentional litter.
facetiously, I think, because plastic bags getting free into the environment, but they do. They
And often,
seem-
very often unintentionally. They're
Oh,
just
no,
so
not-
lightweight, and yeah, they so easily escape from the trash bins, or the transfer from the street side bin to the truck, or just fly out your window, or yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And they, as anyone who's participated in a beach or creek cleanup knows, or even just walking in your neighborhood as a good community member, you reach to pick up that plastic bag and it shatters into hundreds of smaller pieces.
Well, yeah, and I've mentioned that before, but scientifically what's going on here. California is 40 million, almost 40 million people. So in terms of the Earth's population, it's a dinky percentage, but this is going on all over the world.
It is going on all over the world, but again, the U.S. uses a disproportional amount. I mean, we are energy consumers,
Absolutely.
beyond the average or per capita around the world, and we're 12% of the nation's bags now, as
California?
it stands, without the law in place. California is, and so the fear of the bag manufacturers is that we are also a national leader
Oh, absolutely.
on issues like this, and so if we pass it and the world doesn't stop turning, then other states will probably follow what we do.
And New York City's ban is coming online next spring. I just read an article this morning. Boston's considering a bag ban.
Well,
and if
good.
Boston considers that, maybe the whole state of Massachusetts. And I thought, oh no, is Massachusetts going to beat California to the bag ban? Hopefully not on November 8th.
Well,
yes to
so
67.
November 8th. So, okay, we made the point. I think everybody understands the bad things that plastic bags do when they get into the environment, and even if they don't, they fill up landfills and they're going to be there forever, and that's not good. There's no purpose to that. But let's talk about the other choice. What is 65?
65 was a ploy by the bag manufacturers to sort of have an ace in the hole, so to speak, and it takes the 10-cent fee that the grocery stores are now getting to keep and puts it in some sort of environmental fund, which is very poorly designed. The San Jose Mercury News, I think, called this one of the worst propositions ever
The
written.
most disingenuous proposition in the state of California's history.
So it was very slapdash, and they just threw it on the ballot just to sort of, buttress themselves, so to speak. But we are definitely pushing for a no. And
No on 65.
the LA Times the other day came out with a yes on 67, no on 65
San Francisco
position.
Chronicle has as well.
And I think that's the point I was making in the introduction comments, is that there's these Trojan horse operations that they're putting on ballots now. The death penalty's got a similar one. There's one that says we'll get rid of the death penalty, and there's one that says, well, we'll reform it, and we'll have victim restitution, and we'll do all these nice things. It'll get done faster. So if people are tempted to vote for both, they end up passing one by a bigger number than the other, and that one goes into effect. And I've heard that if Prop 65 passes, which on its face sounds like an environmentally
I think they even say like
responsible thing.
environmental, like it says like wildlife fund in the title of the ballot measure.
We'll take
so you
those-
think it's a good thing to
Yeah.
vote yes and support that.
And it's going to go for, well, number one, I understand that the store is entitled to recoup the actual cost of providing
Right.
the bag. So if the bag costs 10 cents, as we said it does, there won't be any money for that fund.
Correct.
Well, and that laws have a provision that people who are on any type of assistance when they
Right.
shop get the paper bags for free, and that
Right.
10-cent charge doesn't apply.
Right.
And in LA County, that's up to 50% of shoppers.
Right.
So that's an average of 5 cents that the grocery stores are
So
getting
they're already-
back.
they're already
And
in
the
the
California
hole.
Grocery Association has been a great partner with us when we were lobbying city council, and to have business on your side makes a difference for some
Really?
of the council votes.
That's good.
And so this proposition was basically designed to
split
divide,
to split the
to-
support for
to divide the grocers and the environmentalists. So you won't find any environmental groups that support Proposition 65.
And in theory, the funds that would be supporting these wildlife projects or whatever that are very poorly defined in Prop 65, they would be diminishing as people adapt and bring their own reusable bags. So it's not a substantial pool of money to begin with, and it should be decreasing over time.
And there's also a serious risk, according to the state legislative analysts, that if 65 passes by a bigger margin than 67, it might prevent 67's ban from going into effect at all. So I don't think people should throw the dice on this.
No, or it could
No.
create legal challenges that hold it
That
up
would
for
continue
another
to-
length of time.
And that's-
Because as it stands now, if 67 does pass, it goes into effect the next day.
Oh.
The next day.
Well, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, it is going to be hard. I was surprised to find that out.
Yeah, but I don't think it'd be enforced that quickly.
Probably not.
And I think, yeah, the state would give businesses time to
Yeah.
adapt and
But
set.
but the voters out there that we're, I think it's so hard to communicate these more clever, subtle. It's like a finesse in a card game or something. There's something going on here, and these people who are putting this stuff in the ballot are getting much wiser about how they
They
do
are.
it, and they can trick us.
Well, the easy thing about this is that 67 is the last item on the ballot. So if you just know going in, yes, on the last item on the ballot, or even if you start at the bottom and work your way up, because we're pretty sure most people are going to have an opinion about the first item on the ballot.
Right.
So if you start at the bottom and go up, it might be less painful that way, and just
Well, there's a
know that
drop-off.
there's a yes vote. Yeah, exactly. There's voter fatigue toward the end of the ballot. So if
So
we
you're
just
saying
say to-
67 is the last
It's the
item
very
on
last.
so if you're going through 17 of these
Exactly.
things, that would be the last one you'd come to, and so it may fail or not get votes, except for the motivated parties.
well, if you start at the bottom with a
And
yes,
start at the
work your
bottom
way
with the
back up.
yes.
Well, I don't know if I haven't really analyzed the ballot this year yet. There was a point when I could think that, did I just want to have an all yes? Was I in favor or was I all no? Sometimes I felt so negative because everything seemed so cynical and hostile. But I don't think it's that simple. I think educated people have to pay attention to this, and it's going to be hard to make them understand that there's dangers there that they don't see. If this fails, if the referendum fails, where are we at then? We go back to having local jurisdictions still have the power, right?
Absolutely.
And what's happening in that regard? Is anybody pushing? Are these individual communities doing this, or is there another? If this was to fail, do you think there'd be another statewide effort?
It would be hard because once voters have spoken, it's really hard to go back. I mean, even us locally to go back to the jurisdictions that haven't passed a law would be a big challenge, at least in the immediate aftermath of this election, because then it puts the councils in a very awkward position of saying, well, my jurisdiction voted, not to have a bag law. Who am I to pass one? So it's going to definitely make it harder to get them done.
Have you seen any public opinion surveys or polls on how this is doing?
Initially, the public polling actually showed strong support for the statewide bag ban. And right now, with 151 cities and counties already having enacted bag bans, they found that people that live in areas that have bag bans
I'm
support
happy.
them. You adapt. It might be a little bit of an inconvenience at first.
It really
But
isn't,
then,
yeah.
for I think for all of us, we were
we-
easily adapted. But
Well, we've talked about it. You forget the bag, you have to go back out, or you juggle it.
Or you carry it all in your
and,
arms,
or you keep it in the cart till you get.
Or you keep bags like this in your car door or your purse, because these are great. Kathy and I worked with this company. This was an interesting story. Chico Bag is in Chico, California, and they were big supporters of these of county and city local bag ordinances. And they did make a product, but they also were advocates. And the owner of Chico Bag was actually, what was he sued for? He was sued by the plastic industry for basically
For-
libel, misinformation, and they settled the case. It wasn't challenged, but these great. This can fit a whole 6-pack of beer, a whole bunch of groceries in it.
25 pounds, they're really
20
strong.
and I've had one since we started the bag work. The very first day without a bag. What was that?
Probably
2009?
2009.
And I still have it, and it still works. So the areas where they have bans in place, they're very supportive. And I haven't seen any recent polling yet, but it was about over 60%, and that would pass.
Well, I hope so. Can we get that logo in front of the screen for a moment, in front of us, so people can see that? There we go.
Oh, great.
Nice.
I sort of like that.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
got
good
the protect the ban, and vote yes on 67, and be sure you don't vote yes on 65. Don't do that. Okay, going back to a couple more minutes left here before we go. Tell us a little bit about your two organizations. Let the audience know what you're doing and how they can help you.
Well, I think this is such a fun partnership because Santa Barbara Channel Keeper works to protect and restore the channel and its watersheds through citizen-based science, advocacy, education, and enforcement of environmental laws. So we're on the water in the community, making sure our beaches and creeks are clean and healthy for not just humans, but all the wildlife and animals that depend on those areas as their homes and habitat. But we get to partner with CEC, which works on sustainable energy, and I'll let Kathy talk about that. And you know, we're coming together on this issue of single-use plastics, but from very different perspectives.
maybe?
And so it's really fun to work together. It's been a really fun partnership.
And people, your contact website? would
Channel
be-
Keeper's website is www.sbck.org for Santa Barbara Channel Keeper.
SBCK, Santa Barbara Channel Keeper.org.
And we're each keeper program is its own individual organization, but we're part of a larger network of keepers throughout the state of California. And we actually have the support of the California Coast Keeper Alliance that's been working on the statewide bag ban in Sacramento too.
And Community Environmental Council's been around a while. Tell us.
Been around since 1970, just
Wow.
a pioneer in solutions on energy issues. Right now, definitely focused on areas most affected by climate change, our transportation sector, and our food system. And we have a strong program in plastics, and so it's been a great partnership with Channel Keeper at cecsb.org.
Better community for you guys to being part of it. Thank you. Real quick mention before we go, there's a program on healthcare at the Faulkner Gallery, sponsored by Healthcare for All. As I mentioned before a couple times, this will be one of the issues on the ballot this coming fall, is a proposal to require pharmaceutical companies to offer drugs to California medical care at the same price the Veterans Administration gets. It's an important initiative on the ballot. We want to vote for it. If you're interested in more information about all of the subject, Healthcare at a Tipping Point is a program October 16th at 2 p.m. at the Faulkner Gallery. You might be interested in going there. Thanks, Juanita, and thanks, Max. Ken, for your help.